General Bhatt. You touched upon some very important areas. You focused on the proxy war that the that is raging in many parts of the world, including India, and the kind of insurgencies that we have to deal with. I think it's a situation which is fraught with a lot of danger. Um, it is still going on in a number of parts of India, and it becomes a major challenge for us how to deal with these insurgencies. You have also come out with number of suggestions. Uh, if there are any questions from the audience, we would like to take them. So please raise your hand and just identify yourself. Behind first. Yeah, that's right.
Dilip Panjikar from Rotary Club of Pune Uptown. On behalf of all of us, I believe I must thank both of you for making this session so interesting. Your authority on the subject was very impressive, but that brings a question to my mind. What, in your individual opinion, is the solution to Kashmir problem, whether with sugary diplomacy or sledgehammer of armed forces? Thank you.
We'll take 3 or 4 questions to start with and then answer them. Mr. Rajendra Shende, please. You have a question.
Mike. The first question is to Ambassador Deware, yourself. You mentioned a very interesting point about like-minded countries. We always know our enemies, who they are. And I think everybody in this crowd will be able to say who are our enemies. But my question is, from you, I would like to know, who are our like-minded countries? Who are our friends, which we authoritatively say, it's a friend. When we are in need, they will definitely come to us. And that confidence, whether we have in such kind of like-minded countries. The second question is to General. You mentioned a very striking issue which we never thought of. That is the J&K schools were burnt. And I think that was really a painful news sites and everybody talking about it at that level. But how come nobody outside J&K ever thought of going there and rebuilding those schools? Because I remember when earthquake comes, whether it is in India or Nepal, we rushed over there. So many NGOs go there. But in case of J&K, I never heard a news that any particular NGO or any particular society have rushed to J&K to rebuild those schools. Why this has happened? Is there any legal constraint to do that? Or NGOs or any other groups are not allowed to enter there?
Fine. Any more questions? Yeah.
I have a question from the ambassadors, sir. Sir, as we know about that we have some conflicts in Asia, means in Asian countries between some countries, as like we have as India and Pakistan has a conflict between on Kashmir. That's a one conflict between India and Pakistan. So how we can solve to that conflict between India and Pakistan on the Kashmir? In the another side, same with Pakistan. There is another conflict between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which is on the Durand line. Durand line means a Torham border. It's a long conflict with Pakistan and Afghanistan after the invention of the Pakistan, when Pakistan came up on the world's map. It's a conflict between these two countries. So there is UN, United Nations. United Nations says we have to solve it. They have letter with them, which was did by the British there, but British Council and the other peoples are not showing to that letter, which was for the 100 years. That after, because at that time when the British were given that letter in UN for the 100 years, that for 100 years, then after 100 years, they will be, that one state of Afghanistan means still, means Peshawar, that is the state of Afghanistan. After 100 years, the Pakistan will have to leave that. but the 100 years has been completed now. And till 112 years are passed, but Pakistan is now leaving to our state. That is the main reason of conflict between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So how we can solve to this problem? One problem between India and Pakistan, and another side border conflict between India and Afghanistan during line.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Just now, Indian Army has done surgical operation. How far it is effective in today's situation and considering peace? I would like to know this
Okay,
also.
so I'll ask General Saab to first answer two questions. One is about the schools in Kashmir, and the other one surgical strike. You can sit down here.
I'll also take this sledgehammer on.
Oh, yeah, so that I will also answer.
Yeah, I'll go in the reverse order. Surgical strikes. Well, there was a surgical strike, there was a lot of disinformation spread, and we had a lot of Indians trying to ask the government of India, was something like this held? Please understand it was held. There's no doubt about it, and the army chief, the retired army chief, General Bikram Singh, also came on TV and one day said, yes, we have done it earlier because some other people were trying credit that we also did it. I'm also aware of it because I was then serving in the army, that there have been localized incidents when you went across and did something and came back, but this was a pre-planned operation which went 4 to 5 kilometers inside and struck at some point. Now, beyond that, I cannot elaborate. Surgical strikes cannot be done every day. It has to be used as a weapon of surprise. There has been one, the message has gone home. When the government of India feels that the elastic limit has now stretched beyond its limit, the second strike will go in. Let me tell you that you have seen one very famous general normally talking on all television channels known as Bakshi. And Bakshi said in one of our NGOs, I also represent an NGO known as Forum for Integrated National Security की हमने भी चूड़ियाँ नहीं पहन के रखी है बंदो हो तो मैदान में आ जाओ. Anyway, that's beside the point. The next, why did we go in for a surgical strike at that point of time? Obviously, our Honorable Prime Minister was being hurt by this so-called 56-inch from his opponents, and the Pakistanis, or I would say the terrorists, struck gold by killing 29 people. This is the first time that so many people died in a raid, and unfortunately for us, these people were sleeping in a tent when 2 battalions were taking over, and the tent caught fire and they couldn't come out. But then it was a big face loser for the government of India, and that is the time the card was played so magnificently when I said, when you know yourself and your enemy, they had a beautiful thing known as, I think they had threatened to close down NDTV for one day, and the whole media attention was focused towards how NDTV should not be closed and freedom of speech, and the surgical strike went in. That is as far as the military operation is concerned. So we can use the surgical strike only at a very appropriate time and at a time of our choosing when you sent a very strong message. The army chief has also changed now. Let's see what General Bajwa does. The second question was a sledgehammer-like of a thing. If you know the whole Kashmir area as such, I would put it into 3 parts. One is the Jammu region, which is having the Aknur side and the Rajouri side and main Jammu. Then you have the Leh Ladakh side, and third is the main valley, as we call it, where 15 Corps is now located in Srinagar. There are about only 6 to 7 districts which are infested with this problem, abated by our Western adversary. No sledgehammer will ever work. You will have to be patient. Uri, where the strike took place and 29 people died, has been epitome of peace ever since the insurgency operations started. And the insurgency operation again goes to Ziaul Haq, who said, I will bleed India to death by 1,000 cuts. So no sledgehammer will work. We will have to go about this way. My very personal opinion is that the government of India needs to pay much more attention to that particular area. Demonetization did work because the moment they didn't have money, the stone pelting stopped. And again, as I said, disinformation is the key to this area known as General Area Srinagar. Next question, I think our Honorable Ambassador will address.
The question about Kashmir, I think it was in two parts. The military action and what would civilian government should do. Well, with respect to the military response, General Saab has already mentioned, we will have to be very firm. There is no question with respect to response to terrorism from Pakistan. I think we have made it very clear to Pakistan as well as to the outside world that as long as this cross-border terrorism continues, we will deal with very firmly and Pakistan should know the consequences of that. Pakistan has tried very hard to internationalize the Kashmir issue. In the last 2-3 years, they have been at it. Actually, the United Nations and the world community have lost interest in this. In fact, for last several years, General Assembly and other international bodies just do not take any note of Pakistan's continuous efforts to bring up this issue. So I think we should also make sure that it remains at that level. At the same time, I think our efforts to tell the world that Pakistan is really destroying itself by insisting on this Kashmir, following this kind of line, needs to be also brought out. And therefore, dialogue with Afghanistan, dialogue with even Iran, these countries really is of importance. Our relations with the US have improved considerably, so let us see what kind of response they give with respect to Kashmir. As far as the situation within Kashmir is concerned, I think we need to do much more than we have done, because there I think is the rub. If the civil unrest in Kashmir continues and the kind of situation that obtained during the last year for nearly 3-4 months or longer, I think that is something which we'll have to see how we can really bring to normalcy with lot of attention to the certain requirements of the people of Kashmir. I think that feeling that they have been neglected is still there, though Government of India has put a lot of money in Kashmir. Maybe it has gone into only a few hands. With respect to jobs, I think the situation is still bad. Communications need to be improved within Kashmir. All that is well known. It is not as though I am saying these things for the first time, but this is something which I think we'll have to really take care of so that the legitimate interests or the concerns of the people of Jammu and Kashmir are attended to. With respect to your question, Mr. Shinde, what I meant by like-minded countries. You see, I did not go into the current challenges before Indian diplomacy, and there are quite a few. One is Pakistan. The situation on the western boundary, there is just no scope for dialogue. We have seen that nothing is really helping. Although Prime Minister Modi took a number of initiatives, inviting Nawaz Sharif at the swearing-in time, later on going to Lahore himself, and so on. So, on that, I think you see the initiative on our part, inviting the Crown Prince of UAE to New Delhi as the chief guest at the Republic Day function. Now, UAE was very close to Pakistan. UAE was also a country which had given, I think, recognition to Taliban. So, if you have dialogue with a country like with UAE, which if they understand Indian position, it helps a lot vis-a-vis our situation with Pakistan. I would go to the area of maritime security. When I say like-minded countries, now there are a number of countries in the Asia Pacific today which share our concern of a deteriorating situation in South China Sea or East Sea or the inroads in the Indian Ocean. I don't need to elaborate further on that. But there are countries like Japan, Singapore, Australia, Philippines, Vietnam, a number of countries which have similar fears and concerns. We need a dialogue. It doesn't mean that we go to immediate confrontation of war, but I think there are many things which can be done diplomatically so that you create a kind of a pressure point on the adversary, that this is what India and a number of countries think collectively on such an issue. With respect to the observation from a friend there from Afghanistan, well, I don't know, but you see, I know very well that when Pakistan was formed in 1947, for a long time, the only country which did not recognize Pakistan was Afghanistan. It was only after, I think, 2-3 years that Afghanistan recognized Pakistan. That was only because of this question of Durand Line. So, if Afghanistan's views on Durand Line and Afghanistan's position, which is quite strong, I know, is further, through mobilization of opinion around the world, is conveyed to the outside world, that this is what Afghanistan strongly believes, be it in the UN, be it elsewhere, then I think Afghanistan's stand on this issue will be known to the outside world. I think most of the countries today are perhaps unaware of that, or at least they are not really paying enough attention to this. This is something why I feel. But in the current security dynamics of that region, I don't know whether it has been possible for Afghanistan to do so. Maybe that is the constraint of Afghanistan at the moment.
One question we missed out was the issue regarding the burning of the schools. Well, my personal opinion is that the schools got burnt at a very rapid pace. Every third or fourth day or maybe in a week we were hearing news like this, and the situation was very, very hot at that time, and Kashmir for an NGO to work would require a lot of protection, because they would try to hit anybody who would try to destabilize situation as seen by the insurgents. The government of India. Therefore, when I was there and I didn't put it, and I spoke today that we can do something, and if you can mobilize some effort, let me assure you that I'll be ready to help you to see that you go there and do your bit with the help of the Indian Army. Let me assure you that.
Well, I think with this we will conclude this session. I don't see any hands now being risen.